Hello everyone, well, welcome to Adventures in Astronomy. I don't know about you, but I absolutely love a good script. No, not those kinds of scripts. I'm talking about the scripts that we use in PixInsight. If you've not used scripts in PixInsight, then I'd encourage you to use them because they're a mini set of programs to get something done so much more quickly than what you and I could do. This is going to be a part 1 video of what might be a series, maybe part 2, possibly even part 3, because I use quite a lot of scripts in my everyday workflow. Scripts can save huge amounts of time. They can also reduce the repetitive manual steps that we all come across from time to time when we're processing our images. And I tend to find that they help us to focus on creative decision-making processes rather than get bogged down in the technicalities of minutiae of sliders and settings. I do want to pay tribute before we start to so many people who are writing scripts. It's quite a technical thing to do, and I'm in complete admiration for the people that do it. Certainly, I haven't got that kind of technical expertise to write my own. Maybe one day, maybe I'll learn how to do that in years to come. But thank you script writers, thank you Blanshan, thank you SetiAstro, thank you many more that have created these amazing scripts for us to be able to use and speed up our processes and workflows. I am in complete awe of you all. Let's head over to the machine now and look at 3 scripts in part 1 that I absolutely would find very difficult to live without. Well, let's start with a script that I use in almost every single process that I do. On screen, you'll see a picture of the Wizard Nebula, and you might notice it's not a bad picture, but it's completely dominated by the star field. I mean, it sort of reminds me of my teenage self in puberty with just spots and acne everywhere. And it's kind of taken away from the nebula image because the stars are so dominant. And so Bill Blanshan has created this wonderful script. If you are not sure how to get Bill Blanshan's scripts, you can go to his website. You do need to go into resources, and if you go to updates and manage repositories and you click add and you click the URL for Bill Blanshan's site, you can do that. I will try and leave in the description where his repository is so that you're able to get these scripts in here. So if you go to script and cosmic photons, which is what Bill Blanshan names his scripts under, you go to star reduction, and this is so easy to use. So when you open up star reduction, let me just enlarge the screen a little bit, make a bit easier to look at. So let's just click and drag. You can click and drag over a section and it will zoom into those stars. And if you double click, it rezooms back out. So you can zoom in and out to see the effect of this. And what we've got is our Wizard Stars, which is the designation of this image behind it. So that's there. And all you've got to do is generate a starless view. So we could do that now. It'll use Star Exterminator. Click execute. It takes a few moments. It'll whiz through Star Exterminator. And already that's a massive improvement on screen to what we had. You can click on Initialize Small Protection. For stars, I actually quite like to sometimes get rid of the tiny stars in a dense star field because the stars I want to remain in it usually are larger stars, but that's a matter of taste. And then what you've got are the box below this is star reduction parameters, and you've got 3 different methods. Almost always I use the transfer method, but if you drop this down, there's a halo method focused on star halos. There's a star method and there's a lightness method. There is, if you want to know more about those, if you click on the tab here for the web browser, there is a full workflow in terms of here of parameters, and it will tell you in this box here that the transfer method is basically the stretch applied to stars. Is reduced by the amount defined by the stretch factor. And I like that version best. I like to play with stretch factor. More about how to do that in a second. But you can see that the star halo images is constructed, then subtracted for star halo. Star method, lightness method, there's the description. So those are all the descriptions of what those tabs do. For the sake of today, I'm actually just going to stay largely in the transfer method, and I will very briefly show the star method as well, just because you might notice these boxes here are grayed out, and they're grayed out in the transfer method and also in the halo method, but they do become active in the star method and also the lightness method. So if we stay in the transfer method, what I like to do is then just think about the stretch factor. 0.1 is usually a really great start place. Let's up this. Let's up this to 0.3 and just see what effect it has, because sometimes the best way of understanding what sliders do is just to play around with them. And you'll notice that's had the effect of putting more stars back. So if I wanted virtually no stars in there, I could always go lower than 0.1. I could go 0.01. Notice I just have to click outside this to apply it, and there we've got virtually no stars in our image at all. So it's really great because you're getting this live preview all the time to understand what's happening. Now 0.01 for my taste is too much. I think 0.15 might be around about right for this image. Let's just click on there. Yeah, that's good. I'm really happy with that. And then that's it. That's all there is to this script. You've got output options. You can obviously create a new star image or reduce the stars on the target image over here. And then you just simply press the click and it will output a version of it. Let's just do that, and it will very quickly put a new version of that. So here's the starless version. Here's the new image. Let's just minimize that for a second. Let's just shrink this down a little bit and just compare the views. And you can see between one image to another, we've got a really nice effect. Those stars are no longer dominating this image now on the right-hand side. And I'd be fairly pleased with that result. Just going back to the script then, I've still got my same parameters here because it does save that. I've still got wizard stars and wizard stars starless, so I don't need to create my starless image again. But just go to one of the other methods. If I go to star method, then suddenly this dialog box of the stretch factor is grayed out, and you get basically a mode saying strong, moderate, or soft. And again, you can play with these as a live view. So if I click soft and then just click off there, I will see the effect of that. I can go to strong, click off that, and that has the effect of a strong star removal. And I can talk about the number of itinerations as well. But I do tend to find that the transfer method gives more control with this stretch factor, because I could easily just go down to 0.16, 0.17. It allows for far more control. So that's script number one that I would find life very difficult to live without, star reduction. Script 2 is all about Bill Blanshan's color mask mod. So Bill Blanshan, thank you. This is script number 2 that I use. Now, sometimes you'll get an image like this wizard nebula again that we're going to use as an example, and you'll want to do some color masks. You want to just define masks. Now, often what I will do, I've got my set of pixel math settings over here, and sometimes I just simply want a blue mask maybe. So what I will do is click and drag, and that will do the pixel math to get me a mask. But actually, if I just kind of create this to the same size, so we just mouse over this and have a look at it, it doesn't always create exactly what I want. Okay, so what I would do maybe is add a mask blur to that, and I've blurred the mask, and that's captured the blue sections. Absolutely it has. I could do sort of another mask for the yellow sections. What about the times when actually you want the mask to be even more selective than that? Well, this is where color masks come in. In the script, Cosmic Photon setting, you do have one that is called color mask mod. It is in the script setting, but this is not the version I use anymore. And the reason why is you get a very similar dialog box to the version I'm going to show you in a moment. But what you don't get in this version is a live view. So there's a new version that does have live view. It's actually not in the scripts. It is technically a script, but it's actually in the processes. So if you go processes, all processes, you will find color masks is right here. And that brings up a dialog box like this. This is a fantastic script because it just allows you so much control. I'm going to say, if we just zoom in on our image a little bit, I want to be really selective with what I want to pick up on this image. I'd actually like to pick up on some of these yellows, but I'd actually like to pick up on them in a very selective way. I'd like to pick up on them maybe on the lighter yellows and less so on the darker yellows. Well, that's where color mask script can come in. So first of all, what I might do is do a preset button. I'm going to select the yellow hues, and I'm then going to click on the live view to see what that is selecting. And it's done a fairly decent job of selecting the yellows, but I can get even more. Just click on and off from that. I can get even more selective than that because that's selected most of the yellows. I don't want most of the yellows. I maybe want just the brighter parts. Well, you can change the lightness on here to select various parts. If I dim the maximum lightness levels, that will then select the dimmer parts of the yellow part of the color mask, if that makes sense. If I dim the min lightness, or raise the min lightness even, that might just get rid of the brightest parts of it. Let's carry on with that. And then I want even the yellow mask to be even more selective than that. So what I'm able to do is click and drag these sliders, because say I want less of the greeny yellows and I want to be very precise in the yellows I'm selecting. So let's just click on and off of that just to see what I've got selected. There you go. Can you see now that from the screen I've really only picked up on the lightest yellows in that image? I could refine it even more. I'm not going to for the sake of the speed of the video, but you can see that's really picked up on the lightest parts, and all I've played with is the lightness settings and played around with the colors starting from the presets. And then you can mask blur it. If we turn this back on, it's already blurred it to a strength of 4. I would recommend going for a mask blur of 3 to 4. If I reduce this down to 1, that's too sharp. You can see it incrementally going up in the blur, the mask blur. 3 starts to be fairly decent. I prefer 4. 5, a little bit too much, but you might want to if you want more protection. So I'm going to hit that back down to 4. And of course, you can even have the mask strength. So once I am happy, I can create my mask. And the beauty, let's just apply this mask. So the beauty with this script is once I've done my color mask and I've selected those very precise parts of the image, I can then go into curves, go back into a live view of the curves, and I can really precisely target those areas. So I could look at the RGB and I could just raise the RGB of those areas. So can you see, hopefully, before and after? So I've lightened them up even more. Look, before, after, before, after. I'm not sure you do that. It's not a good edit, but I'm just showing you for the purposes of demonstration. So I could reset that. I could look at the saturation of those parts and really oversaturate them and maybe bring them up to the hue of the parts of yellow below them so that they sort of match a bit more. So you could go before and after just to see the subtlety of that. I could work on the luminance. I could work on the color channels. So maybe I want a little bit less green in there, so it makes it a little bit more yellow. Or maybe I want more green. That looks a bit odd to me, but you could do something like that. The basic thing with this script is you've got the absolute control. So just to recap, most of the time I would use these scripts. I will link to these scripts at the end of the video because they're Luca Matico's scripts. Thank you, Luca Matico. I've been using these for quite a number of years. I'm not sure quite where he got them from, but they are very quick, and in most occasions they're good enough. But if it's precision you're after, then I really would highly recommend this color mask script. Just a couple more settings before we go. You could just click and drag to start and set the hue. So if I say I want a color mask for the blues and I want to go from this sort of darker part here, if I click on that and say set the start hue, and then I want it to go to the brightest parts of the blue here and say set end hue, it has then picked up on that hue range. You could also widen the hue range, and you could reset the readout. So all kinds of controls within there. So that's Bill Blanshan color mask script. I tend to use this on at least half the images that I process. And finally, narrowband imaging. Now, obviously, taking narrowband images takes quite a bit longer than broadband images, just in terms of time. I tend to set my narrowband images at 15 minutes, certainly no less than 10 minutes. So it can take a long time, but sometimes there's not time to get the stars in the RGB color profiles, and maybe you've run out of time. So this is a script that I tend to use when I'm in that situation to get me out of a fix, or when I don't have time to do another night just to get the star colors. And this is a script by SetiAstro. So let me show you where you can find the script. It's script, and you go down to SetiAstro. He's got so many good scripts. And in future videos, we'll go through a few more of these, but this is probably the one that I use the most from this. So, and you go to narrowband to RGB star combination, and that will bring up this view. Now, just before we go any further, I'm just going to show you the power of this, because what I've done, I have stars that I've extracted from the image, just for the sake of argument, to show you what's there. If we blow this up, I know it's going to be awful. It's just one channel, but the stars are the only thing that's in the image. Okay, so I'm just going to leave them in their linear state, and I've got O3 stars from the image. I've got hydrogen alpha stars here, and I've also got sulfur stars here at the back. Just to show you what would normally happen, you would normally combine these channels together and stretch them, and that's what I've done here. At first glance, these stars look all right, but if I zoom in a little bit, you'll start to see they're a little bit funky. And we've got sort of green looking ones. They just don't look very natural at all. And you can imagine if these stars were larger, they'd really stand out, possibly spoiling the image. So, you've got some sort of interesting sort of almost blue white, but these yellow green ones really just look quite odd. What narrowband to RGB star script does is it gives you more natural looking stars. So if we go back to the script, SetiAstro, and we go to narrowband to RGB combination, it will bring this up. And all you've got to do is it's so easy to use. You select your HA stars. By the way, just for naming conventions, I would strongly suggest that you name them as HA and stars. And linear in my case. Workflows like that stop you getting confused. You might notice when I click my drop down menu, there's a load of things here because this is a project file and I've done loads of things with it. So you can quickly get confused with the overwhelming amount of names if you don't think about your naming conventions. I'm looking for my O3 stars, they are there. And I'm looking for my sulfur stars, and they are also going to be under sulfur stars linear. That's what I've saved them all. You can also just load in a one-shot color from a dual band image. So you can do it like that. And then there's a couple of other things that you can do with this. You can green channel blend the ratio. We'll look at what that does in a minute. And you can apply a star stretch. I always apply a star stretch if they're in a linear state. And I want to show the preview because I want to see what this is doing. Now, you resize your box a little bit to see what is going on. The zoom on this is one thing that I think could possibly be improved in this script, but I'm going to zoom in to 1:1, which is actually quite a decent zoom. In fact, that's zoomed in quite a long way, but I can start to have a look at these, and already compared to my combined image that I showed you earlier, these look much more natural. There's more natural blues. I can see hues of red and yellow in there. They're not 100% accurate, absolutely not, but they are definitely towards the right end of the color spectrum, and you can look at the stretch factor. I've said that I want to apply a star stretch. Maybe I could say that's too much of a star stretch. I could zip that down to 4 and refresh the preview, and we'll get probably a few less stars. That's probably a bit more to my taste. Maybe there's now too few, so maybe a happy medium would be to zip that up to 4.5 and refresh the preview. Yeah, I'm happy with that. And you've got the color boost, so I could boost the color a little bit more of these. Let's zip that up to 1.40 and see what that does. Refresh preview. And I think that's gone a little bit too far. Just looking at some of these central ones, I'm just going to back that off a little bit. Let's back that back down to 1.1. Refresh the preview. Yeah, just looking over here, that one over there just suddenly looked a little bit more natural. So I'm then going to execute. And looking at those stars, perhaps a bit too many still for me. That's still quite a dense star field. Maybe I should have done it on setting 4. But what I would say is worth doing is now comparing. You can already see, just completely zoomed out, that this has this sort of, it's got a greenish yellow tinge to it. And that, I don't know if YouTube's picking this up, but on this, as you look at the overall picture of it, that tinge has gone. And certainly if we start to zoom into areas a little bit, let's just have a look at this area here and compare it. You can see the stars at a pinch. If you're struggling and you haven't got time to take those RGB stars, it's going to give you something pretty decent. Those are the 3 scripts that I'm going to show you for today. There are more scripts that I use. Trying to show you in part 1 the ones that are, to me, the ones I use in most of my workflows, depending on the image. But we'll be back hopefully later in the year with a part 2. I'm going to give this script video a little bit of a break because I tend to find it'll be a little bit boring if I do part 1 and next week part 2 and next week after part 3. So it'll be later in the year. But I am going to come back to this and show you some more scripts. And who knows, by then there might even be some newfangled fancy ones to look at. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been helpful for you. And if you've never tried scripts, or if you've only tried 2 or 3 scripts, go and experiment. Sometimes what I do in an afternoon is I'll just load up an image that I've already processed or part processed or even a project file, and I'll just go into the scripts folder and just have a look at what they all do. It's definitely worth doing because although you're messing about, you're not really processing anything. In the longer run, these things can really, really save you time. My name's Martin. You've been watching Adventures in Astronomy. We'll see you next time.